Bob Miglani is an author, an accomplished executive with a Fortune 50 company in New York for the last 20 years. He grew up running his family's Dairy Queen store, okay, call out for Dairy Queen, doesn't happen too often on the show, and came to America from India about 35 years ago with only $75, desire to pursue the American dream. Through real-life experience in India, Bob has been able to bring a fresh perspective to chaos that surrounds our modern life right here at home in America, which is the topic of his new book called Embrace the Chaos, How India Taught Me to Stop Overthinking and Start Living. Bob, welcome to the show.
Hi, Barry. How you doing? Thank you for having me.
I'm sure that most small business owners that are listening this morning can embrace the idea of chaos. That's certainly what it's like to run a small business. And I'm planning for my first trip to India, and people are telling me that it really is a chaotic place. How did you decide to write this kind of book?
Well, Barry, I was stuck. I looked at my life. I grew up in the U.S. I ran a Dairy Queen. I was a paper boy, mowed lawns, and did all the great things. And as I grew in corporate America, I was doing great. And then something happened, and I guess in 2007, 2008, with the financial crisis and everything and job uncertainty, you look at the future and you look at all the paths in front of you, and it all looks terrible. And I became worried and stressed, and I was really worried about the future. And I became stuck. I didn't know what to do. If I moved here, did that, I looked, and everything just looked so terrible. And it was on a trip to India that I learned that the place is in chaos. I mean, there's, nothing is certain. Whether you drive in traffic or you go to a business meeting or you try to find a job or how people get married or people buy groceries at the supermarket, everything's unpredictable, uncertain. Everything's so complicated and everything's so fast. And you don't know what's going to happen next, and you freeze. And you say, well, what do I do next? And that's sort of where I was in my life. And what I learned from India is that you have to do three things: accept, don't overthink, and move forward. And that's what I started learning to do in my own life here at home. I started learning to embrace the chaos. So it was, for me, a way to get unstuck and move forward. And that's sort of why I wrote the book, Embrace the Chaos.
So talk about those things, those three things, because I think it's really important for small business owners, since we don't know what's going to happen every day, that you really have to really embrace the uncertainty. So talk about those three steps in a little bit more detail, Bob.
Sure. So let me give you an example. My wife owns a small business that I helped her start. She's an eye doctor. She's an optometrist. And she opened up a small business in 2008 was when the worst time, October 2008, she started her business. She opened the doors February 2009, really difficult time. She had no customers, selling glasses and giving eye exams as an eye doctor. And, she had no experience in doing such. And I was helping her. We had our second child, so it was a craziness at home. And so, doing that and going through that experience was very challenging. So let me give you a more recent example of how she had embraced the idea of Embrace the Chaos in her own business. So earlier in this year, the business was doing great the last 4 or 5 years, growing every year, new customers, new patients coming in. Then we get sidelined. You get sideswiped by something that happens online, for example. A negative Yelp review popped up online. And, you've seen small business say, what, this happened out of nowhere. It's unfair. The customer's upset. They don't talk to you. Customers don't talk as much as they used to, give you that feedback anymore. They just go online and do it. So you get sideswiped, and you say, well, what happened all of a sudden out of nowhere? I get this online review. And in search, that comes up very high. And so the business slowed down just because of that one negative review, while she has thousands of very happy customers who don't post reviews. And so we took that principle, and what happened for us was we got stuck. We started overthinking. We started, why did this happen? What did we do wrong? What did she do wrong? How could this happen? How could this patient do this? How could this customer do this to us? And it took us some months to really get a grasp on it. And what happens is time flies by, and nothing happens, nothing changes. So what we learned to do in that environment is to, one, accept that what you got sideswiped by, happens. It's just life. It's just the way it is. It's unpredictable. You're not going to know what's going to happen. So accept it and let go of why it happened. Just accept it. Second is stop overthinking and trying to figure out why. Stop overanalyzing. Well, if I only, and as business owners, small business people, we all blame ourselves because we think we're the master of our destiny, So stop overthinking it and trying to blame yourself or your staff or, something. Yes, you have to analyze sort of why it happened, but don't go too much into it, because once you get caught up, you go into a spiral of anxiety and you don't move forward. You don't want to get out of bed. So the third is take action, move forward, dig deep, and do something about it. So what we started doing was started going and talking to the customers that she had originally, and the customers were very happy, and seeing if they had a Yelp profile online, and hey, maybe can you go and write a nice review for us? And so that's what I started doing. Started thinking about new ways to do marketing and reaching other customers, or new relationships and partnerships and alliances. So the idea really here, Barry, is that when you get, and businesses, small businesses are full of challenges from a day-to-day, from an employee leaving, unexpectedly, to customers or competition coming up. We have to accept, stop overthinking, and just keep going, because once we do, things have a way of working out. And it's really, and the thing is, the stress and the anxiety is really when you don't take action, when you don't have control. And what I'm saying in my book, Embrace the Chaos, is you can't control the chaos. You can only control yourself and the actions you take every day. And that's what we learn to do.
Yeah, one of the things that I keep talking about, because I think people do get stuck in this idea of failure. In America, we keep thinking, well, why did failure happen to us? What can I really learn? And I think what you're saying is that the most important thing is to really let go and take another action to put you in a different place, right?
Absolutely. I think failures are stepping stones to success. We've always heard that. And we're so afraid to fail. It's very challenging for us to say, oh, my gosh, I can't believe this happened. But what I've learned is that something happens inside that you want to eventually, at some point, you get tired of it, you get angry with yourself, and you start saying, and I did, my own career and my own life is, and the answers are not outside, they're inside. You have to dig deep and to start saying to yourself, as they say, when life gets tough get going, right? It's sort of this idea of get going and do something. And failures are a way, are sort of the life's way of telling us you've got to do something else. And that's something else. You may not know at that moment. You may not have a perfect plan for it. But if you have a goal in mind, you'll figure out a way. Just keep trying and just keep going. So I think those are the lessons I've learned, is that, these failures are stepping stones to success, and you just have to keep trying. And the answers are not going to be with trying to find more information. We think, if we had more data, more time, more money, more economy's better, or something's better. What I learned in my experience in Embrace the Chaos is, there's no perfect time,
Right,
and if we wait for a perfect chance, you're never going to succeed. So we just have to keep trying and keep going.
So where can you get, this all sounds great. We're sitting here, we're talking calmly, we're not talking about a real issue that's perhaps, facing our business, but it's very difficult to do this on your own. Where and how can people get help in really getting unstuck and really moving forward?
There's two ways, Barry, that I've found in my own life of learning to get unstuck and move forward. I think the first is, you have to break the pattern of the negative thinking that your mind comes up with every day. And that one way that I do that, frankly, is by, listening to, radio shows like yourself, great radio shows, podcasts, YouTube videos, getting a point of reference that's outside of your own head. Our mind can disable us from moving forward. And what I found is when I start listening and hearing and reading inspirational stories, whether it's, motivational personal development things on the internet, to books, to magazines, to surrounding yourself with, business people, other business people who are doing well and succeeding. So giving your mind another seed to put inside its head, other than your own negative thinking sometimes, is very helpful. And the second is by going out and talking. I love engaging people. And I found that when you go and talk to people, whether it's customers or going out, when we were running the Dairy Queen, one of the things we used to do, when I was helping my parents run the Dairy Queen many years ago, and my parents still run the Dairy Queen here in New Jersey, what we used to do is to go out and see the competition. What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? How can we be different than them? So it's just this notion of getting out of behind the computer and into facing reality and seeing things from the outside and taking a field trip. That invigorates you. And you say, wow, I ought to be doing this. Oh, I ought to be thinking about that. Scanning out new locations or looking at the way that other people are working. I think giving yourself a point of reference through looking at other people, number one, or other things, and number two is getting out of the house, getting out of the chair and going out and doing a walkabout. Those are the two ways I found that we can learn to really embrace the chaos in our lives and in our small businesses. And, businesses these days, business owners, I really commend them because it's tough. But you know what? It makes you stronger. It makes you more happier when you succeed. And those little moments of progress when the customer, my wife gets a lot of hugs from her customers. And I tell her those things are worth more than millions of dollars in your bank because that means you're successful. Ultimately, that's.
I want to call it a couple of quotes from the book, which I thought was really interesting. When you say it all works out in the end, just accept it. A lot of us, for me, I'm always skeptical. What do you mean by it all works out in the end? Does it mean that everyone always lives happily ever after?
I don't think that's, necessarily the case, Barry, of that, everyone lives happily. But things work out in the sense of a couple of things. One is that, once you move ahead, once you move forward, you may not, you have a plan to say, okay, I'm going to achieve this goal, and whatever that goal might be. But once you start going towards that goal, you find, maybe I don't really want to be in that goal. Maybe that's not what I really want in life. And so life puts you in another direction or another direction, another direction, and ultimately you find yourself somewhere where you thought, wow, I really didn't want to do that, but I really love what I'm doing. I bet you a lot of small business owners who are listening to this saying they fell into this business. Sometimes you sort of fall into these things. And that's what I mean is that your life that you think you might have, 10 years ago that you thought you might have, is probably not the one you're living right now. It's probably very different. And in that sense, things worked out because you found yourself in a place where you have an impact, you make a contribution, and you like what you do. So that's sort of one thing. The second is we stress so much about, wanting to have, our way, and sometimes we get that and we're unhappy. And so what I'm saying, what all works out in the end is that, if you keep trying and keep going and you move through the zigzag of life, that's what it is. It really is a zigzag. You didn't get here in a straight line. You and I are talking on this phone today. We didn't get here in a straight line, and we're not going to move forward in a straight line. And so this notion of, just keep going, at the end, whatever that time will be, you will find yourself looking back and saying, man, it was a great ride. I don't know how I got here, but I know I'm here. And you know what? It's not bad at all. It's pretty good. And that's what I mean is you have to give faith in a way to yourself to say you'll figure out where you're going once you move ahead. But you got to keep going. You can't get stuck and just stop overthinking. Just not overthink. Just keep going. And that's sort of the way I do it.
Well, Bob, I love the book. Of course, it reflects my view on small business. I think everyone should read it. Where can you get a copy of it?
Embrace the Chaos is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and bookstores everywhere. But the best place, easiest place is Amazon.com. Just put in Embrace the Chaos.
Bob, thanks so much. Have a great weekend. Thanks for writing this book.
All right. Thanks very much. Be well.